My name is Sydney Fromm. Some of you probably already know that. I am creating a vlog series to introduce, I guess, and to explain a little bit more about the book series that I'm writing. So there are three. It's a trilogy. It is based in Ireland / ancient Ireland. There is time travel kind of involved. And essentially the plot is that the old gods have kind of disappeared, no one knows where they are, and because of that, magic has withdrawn from our world, and like the lower class of fairies is now in charge of making sure that the magic in our world stays stable. Now, this has become a problem because the light and the dark fairies have gone to war against each other. Now, the light fairies and the dark fairies, they don't necessarily mean good and evil. It's more pertaining to the kind of magic and skills that they have. So because the light and the dark fairies are at war, a prophecy was made in ancient Ireland that there is a girl that will come from the human world to establish balance between the light and the dark magic, bringing magic back into our world. So there are a few questions that I would like to answer about the book series. So did I story map the whole trilogy before starting to write? Kind of. I started writing this when I was in college for NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And then it got put on the back burner when I went to student teaching, and I kind of played around with it a little bit every year, and then last year I got really serious about it. So right here are all of the books and references that I have been using so far, and in this binder I keep everything from family trees to maps that I've drawn and outlines of each novel. So what I've done is with the first story, the first book, I outlined each chapter, kind of the main events of each chapter, and then after that I was kind of at a loss as to where I wanted the story to go, so I just started putting down plot points. From there I decided, okay, I'm going to break up these plot points into book 2 and into book 3. Now, book 1 follows Ophelia. She's the main character. Book 2 follows a different character. And book 3 rotates between Ophelia and a third main character. So we have Ophelia, her point of view in the first book. The second book follows a mysterious second character. And then the third book is Ophelia rotating between a third character's point of view. That third character is not the person that we follow through the second book. And I'm not going to tell you who those people are because that would ruin the surprise as you're reading through these. I have also, so did I write them in order? I currently am writing them in order, yes. So they're all outlined, completely outlined. I'm working on it's essentially my third draft of the first novel, and then when I'm done with that, I am going to send it out to some people for edits, and as they are editing, I am going to start working on the second novel. Another question that I got was, how do you come up with character personalities? So character personalities it's kind of a hard question to answer because I don't set out to, like, okay, I want this character, I need this character, this is how many people I want. I just kind of started writing the story and people just popped up. But once I knew how many people I wanted in the story, I went ahead and I created character maps. So first I had this huge poster with all of these note cards taped onto them. That became a huge waste of space, so I condensed my note cards into character descriptions. So I pulled photos from the internet of what I sort of thought my characters would look like, and then I wrote a description for each of them. So I have the humans, I have the fairies, I have other characters in there. I also have if that character lives or dies, when they die, if they do die. And in regards to their personality, it just kind of develops as I wrote. I knew right away with Ophelia, the main character, I didn't want her to totally believe in magic at first. Her younger brother Connor totally does believe in magic. So for Ophelia, it was a gradual change as she gets further and further into her storyline. And then, which stories have inspired you most for my own story? So that's actually really easy. I will go grab the books that inspired me to write this. Okay, so I didn't grab all of them because there's quite a few of them, but the series Daughter of the Forest. This is the series that really, really, really influenced not just this trilogy, but my writing overall. I am a huge fan of the Celtic mythology, of mythologies in general, but the Celtic stories and the Celtic way of life really struck a chord with me. And these books by Juliet Marliner, I'm pretty sure I'm saying her last name wrong, but they were really, really amazing, and I actually put off reading them until I was in after college, and I'm kind of glad that I did because it was after I had been to Ireland once already, and so I really connected with the characters a lot as well. Something else that this series really influenced in my writing was the different point of views for the different books. Each book in this series is from a different member of the family. So this first book follows Saoirse, and then the second book follows a different character in her family. I believe it's one of her kids. And then the third one follows another person, and so on. So that's where, for the point of views that I talked about previously, that's where that came from. Where do I like to write? So I'm at my desk in my bedroom right now, and I actually don't write here. If I'm writing, I normally am in the living room with headphones in, listening to music, or most of what I have written for this third draft of my first novel has been done in my classroom over my lunch breaks. And that just happened to be because I was writing when I was working. Over the summer, I haven't done a whole lot of writing because I was on a trip to Ireland to do a little bit more research. And I didn't do any actual writing. I did a lot of story planning and photo gathering, things like that, to help me visualize as I'm writing. But yeah, so that's where I write. When I start writing new characters, how did I find out who they are? So it kind of goes back to developing the character personalities. I kind of let the story go, and then as I ran into new characters, then I would sit down and decide who I wanted them to be in the story, flesh them out with their personality, what are their physical traits, how are they going to fit into the story as a whole, because if there's no huge purpose for them in the plot line, then I don't spend a lot of time fleshing them out. Characters that we meet only briefly, they are only briefly worked on by me as well. How did I name my books? So, my books are, it's the Isle of Emerald trilogy, but the first book is titled The Fate of the Fae, and that was very alliterative, and after I named that one, I was like, okay, I really like this, sounds good. I named the second one The Folly of Finbar. Finbar is that mysterious character that we follow through the second book, and because that also was very alliterative with words that start with F, I decided, okay, well, I have to continue the trend with the third book, and the third book is titled The Fear of the Fallen. Do I primarily read in the age range or genre that I write for? Overall, yes. The very first book that I started writing, which was about 7 years ago, 7 years ago, because it was just out of high school, was more like a murder mystery type story, but it was also based in fantasy, and I read a lot of fantasy in YA lit. The books that I'm currently writing right now, the Isle of Emerald trilogy, are young adult novels. I read a lot of young adult novels, one, because I really like that genre, and two, because I really like to have book recommendations for my students. So yes, I do read a lot of books in the genre that I write for. What makes you decide to kill off a character? So, I'm not going to tell you who dies or has brushes with death in the story, but when a character stops having a huge influence on the plot line, or if their death is going to further that plot line, is when I really look at, okay, should this character die? Some of the characters that I've written that have died, not necessarily in the trilogy, but just in other stories as well, it's been a total shock to myself. I'm just writing and I'm like, oh, holy crap, this character's gonna die. If a character that I've written is dying for shock value, that's not a good reason, and I try to avoid that. If that's the only purpose for that character's death, there are other ways to go about shocking your audience. When I edit, do I print out a physical copy and edit, or do I just work online? So with my first draft of The Fate of the Fae, which is book number 1, I went on to my Word document, I scrapped basically everything and just rewrote the whole thing. So I did edit online for that one. And then the second edit, the second draft, I did print out. This is that edit, which is then now, so as I'm editing this, I'm writing the third draft. I like to do physical edits more than editing on a Word document. One, because I can find the mistakes a lot easier than just going through and looking at the story online, and then two, because I can do things where I cross things out, I write notes, things like that. So I also write in red. I write in red as a teacher when I'm editing, which some people might think is mean. Some students are like, "Miss, it hurts my feelings." I'm like, it's just a color, so get over it. But so yeah, I physically edit. Okay, so do I listen to music when I write? If so, what kind? For this trilogy, I listen to Irish instrumental music or like pub music, just to set the atmosphere. For my writing in general, I listen to a lot of movie soundtracks. I have picked a few different songs, like as I'm listening to them, that I imagine playing, this is kind of nerdy, as I imagine them in the background of that scene, like if this was to be a movie. But I rarely write with no sound at all. It just, I don't like it. So those are really the questions that I had this time. The next video vlog that I think I'm going to do is going to be talking about the book covers. I have all 3. So if you have questions about like how I chose the artist, how I came up with the idea for the cover, you can ask me those. If you have any other questions about the series in general, my own writing, or anything else really, go ahead and ask me.